Okay, looks like it's recording. Um, First and foremost, I just want to say Toda Rabah to Gimlan Abiela for putting together this wonderful platform for us as women, as mothers, grandmothers, daughters, sisters, cousins, friends, to just be able to come together to share expressions, to heal, to just come together, especially because we're so spread out at this point. We're all over the state of Israel, we're all over the planet, we're all over the cities that we live in. So thank you so much. Between this platform and the Soul to Soul Line Dance group, the WhatsApp group that we have for a group of older sisters, this opportunity to share love, to show appreciation to one another. It's so healing, it's so calming, it's so helpful, and it's so needed in these times. So I'd spoken with Gimola about sharing information for body safety for our children. As all of you know, or most of you know, definitely, um, for a long period of time, really it's for the last 11 years, I have been working in the area as a child safety advocate. Okay, child safety advocate is someone who works on behalf of children, okay? And as most of you know, my children were, they're now adults, but they were, victims of child sexual abuse. So that is what started me on this path of work. So for those of you on the international scene that, or members that may not know me, my name is Sister Rakaya. I should have said that up front, I don't know if I did. And I was for 35 years, almost 35 years, about a member of the Hebrew Israelite community here in Israel, Dimona, Israel. I've lived here in Israel for 41 years now. I've lived here longer than I ever lived in the US. And for some of you that may be important, that I am no longer a member of the community. For some of you it may not, but full disclosure, full transparency. I don't want anyone to think that I'm presenting something that I'm not, okay? So who am I? I'm Code Rakaya. I was a school librarian at Beit Sefer Akba for 14 years. I am a certified librarian. I am a certified mentor. I am certified with the region's sexual assault center that deals with volunteer program, 24-hour hotline, accompanying individuals to the center in Beersheba. The name of the center is Masalan, or accompanying people to Beit Lin or to the police station or to hospitals for test kits, rape test kits. Those are the types of things that I do. I don't do the hotline only because of the language, and I am the only certified volunteer right now for our community. We need more, so if there are any young women that would like to do the course, let me know. I give you the information so you can sign up. It's held basically once a year. So I think that covers everything of who I am. I'm also the mother of Bitula and Afran, 2 adult children, and grandmother of 6 children, 3 girls, 3 boys. For those of you who didn't know, Afran has 2 daughters now. So that's who I am. And why am I here today? Because I wanted to share information that over the last 11 years, I have done online training, I've done in-class training, I've done a lot of research, I've communicated with a lot of organizations that work in this capacity. And though initially I started out because of sexual abuse, I've come to understand the importance of eliminating trauma in a child's life across the board. And trauma comes from many, many different ways. It's not just sexual abuse, any type of physical, verbal, emotional abuse to a child. So I don't know how long this Zoom platform, I hope that this is going to record okay. Sorry I couldn't go live, you know, inadequate internet connection. I don't know what the problem is, but it didn't allow me to go live. So I'm doing it on this Zoom platform and pray that it's going to be okay. And I'm sitting here in my Yoni Steam treatment room, which is also my meditation room, my exercise room. This is my room that I come into every morning to set my day, you know, to set my intentions. And environment is really important in the healing journey. I've been on a healing journey myself for the last 11 years, you know, because as a parent, when things happen to our children and we think that it's just our children that have to heal, guess what? We have to heal too. Because like when, in my case, the pain went so deep that I had not protected my children. And even though I didn't know, you know, and my mind says, well, Rakaya, you didn't know, but my soul says that your children were hurt. And so it took me all the way up to literally last year before I finally got to the point where I realized one day in the course of therapy, we'll talk about therapy too, but in the course of my therapy, I realized I finally stopped blaming myself for what happened, you know. So, okay, let's get into this. All right, so how do we keep our children safe? It's just so much to cover. And I really wish that I could sit in a front room together and we could all just be together and you all could ask questions and we could just talk. Unfortunately, it's not like that, but you all can inbox me later with any questions that you have, and I will do my best to answer them. So there are so many things that contribute to our children not being safe. Let's start with, okay, the body safety. Gosh, this is harder than I thought it was going to be, not having all the papers sitting here in front of me. Okay, with body safety, first of all, we're not with our children 24/7, 365. You know, they're going to school, they're with friends, they're with relatives, they're in after-school programs, and the majority of sexual abuse to children does not happen at the hand of strangers. You know, in the past, stranger danger was what was taught, but 90% or more of situations of sexual abuse of children happens from the hands of someone that that child and that you know and trust, okay? Family members, parents, step-parents, friends, relatives, teachers, coaches. It happens at the hands of any and every one. And unfortunately, offenders, and let me clarify something here, I don't use the word pedophile anymore. When I initially started this, that was the word always used, pedophile, pedophile, pedophile. But everyone that offends is not a pedophile per se, as far as the term pedophile. And all pedophiles do not offend. So I will use the word perpetrator or offender, okay? So perpetrators and offenders don't walk around, they don't look like monsters. You can't tell your child, well, look out for a certain person the way that they look, because they can be any sex, any gender, male or female. They can be any age, from young children through adults. They can be from any social or economic situation. They can be politicians, they can be judges, they can be professionals, they can be teachers, they can be at-home moms, they can be at-home dads, they can be anyone. It can be anyone. So what you have to teach your children is a behavior to look out for. And that is going to be the most important thing, teaching our children how to identify behaviors that are not acceptable, that are inappropriate, and giving them the courage to say something when it happens, to say something at that time to that individual, stop, don't touch me, get away from me, to be able to come back and tell us, okay? We do have programs that we've put together for the elementary level children. They're age appropriate, they're interactive programs, and we just have to figure out right now with COVID going on, how we can even make that happen. When we started this and we had them ready in November and December of last year, we couldn't really seem to get the parents on board, but I would definitely recommend that you allow your children to participate in this program, because it's going to give them tools and keys that I can't just give over a computer screen, okay? And you telling your child, don't let nobody touch you. If anybody touch you on your bottom, on your breast or whatever, come tell me. That's cool, but it's really not enough, because there are instances where we've talked with parents who, something has been brought to us, to our committee. When I say we, I'm referring to the committee that I work with. That started in 2010, sanctioned by Robbie, may he rest in peace. When Coach Shikadia came to me and said, because of a 6-year-old that a situation happened with, and she said, well, Kaya, we really need to take this to Abba. We really need to deal with this. And I'm like, fuck that, I'm finished. I ain't dealing with nothing. But I thought about it, and I went ahead and composed the letter. And for those of you who believe in, if you believe in a higher source, Yah, God, Buddha, whatever you refer to, I go with source energy or higher source. When I wrote that letter and I looked at that letter the next day, I did not write that letter, and I always have to say that higher source wrote that letter. And we sent that letter in, and I don't know how many younger people know, you used to send things in and it might be days, weeks, months before you got an answer. Man, we got an answer in like 2 days. And he sat with us, he sat with us, and he didn't know what we were gonna say, where we were coming from, but we expressed our concern to begin to educate the sainthood on this topic. And prior to that had been a taboo kind of subject. People just didn't talk about it outright and out loud. So, I will always be appreciative to him for supporting that platform. We developed that committee, and we actually put together a 1-hour video presentation that we used in our workshops. We did workshops in Dimona, Aride, Meats Pay, and everyone that did come out and had an opportunity. That is now available on YouTube if you want to go and watch it. Remember, it's 10 years old. A lot of the information, though, has not changed. Some of it is just updated, and unfortunately, a lot of it's gotten a lot worse. But it's called Silent Epidemic, Child Sexual Abuse. If you type in my name, Rakayah, R-A-C-A-Y-A-H, that will help you to find it. If you don't find it, it's in 2 parts. So that is what we did then. And that allowed us to begin to hold some dialogue about that topic. Lost my point, my train of thought. But anyway, training is significant, that we begin to train our children and teach our children, and also parents, that you all understand this topic. We also, prior to the children participating in their workshop, we have a 1-hour, 1.5 hour class dialogue discussion for parents. Why? There are certain things that as adults we need to talk about amongst ourselves first before we bring the babies on board. And for the children's workshop, yes, parents, you can come and participate, okay? So we just have to figure out how to make that happen. Again, with COVID, and especially now that they've instituted another set of restrictions and gone back to only 10 people in a room, how can we have that dialogue? For the parents, I'm open to ideas and suggestions. I really don't like doing it through Zoom because it's not like hands-on. But if that's how we have to do it, that may be what we'll have to do. So first of all is the classes. I'm going to attach to this a number of links and videos that you all can use on YouTube to share with your children, many of which we've used in our presentation. But not only teaching them that they have the right, we have to teach them that they have the right to speak up. We have to teach them that if someone touches them, it is never their fault, okay? We have to teach them the importance of not keeping secrets and knowing the difference between a secret and a surprise. A secret is something that you feel, you know, somebody threatens you, you can't tell, you feel like you can't tell, you're afraid to tell. A surprise is something that will be told at a specific time. For example, if we want to surprise Ima for her birthday, you know, and we're having a cake baked and we're getting her a gift and we're not telling her, that's a surprise. It's going to come out, you know, we're going to share that information. But a secret is something that makes you feel dirty. It makes you feel afraid. There's so many emotions tied into keeping secrets. And unfortunately, parents, some of our parents teach their children to have secrets away from their other parent, especially in cases where parents are separated and divorced and going through some major issues. And we know that these are some realities in our life. You know, don't tell your Abba this, don't tell your Ima that. If you're at Abba's house, you do thus, and so. But when you're at Ima's house, you do thus, and so. We teach our children that it's okay to keep secrets from one another. So then when somebody else comes along and says, you know, does something inappropriate, says, this is our secret, don't tell. How do they know the difference? You know, these are things that we have to be conscious of. There are so many things that contribute to making our children vulnerable, and, you know, these bad relationships that we have between the mothers and the fathers. We have to be able to co-parent. And I know it's difficult because one side might be acting a real total butt. I want to say something else, but I'm gonna keep it clean. And so it can be difficult. So, you know, those are things that contribute. What are the things that we're doing in our homes sometimes? How do we deal with modesty? You know, and this is no judgment. It's just something for us to consider. I remember one young daughter said how she couldn't stand, she was the only girl, and she lived in a house with all of her brothers who were older than her, and they walked around in their underwear, their boxers all the time, and they always had their hands down in their pants. You know how boys and men sometimes can do that, you know, and that was okay and accepted in her home, you know, the home that she lived in, but it bothered her. She didn't like it, you know, and there are things that we may do and how we walk around and how we dress in our homes that may also lend to curiosity, more curiosity. First of all, sex is a part of life. It's a fact of life. We are all sexual beings. We are born that way. I've seen babies changing diapers, little boys that have an erection, you know, little babies, girls and 2-3-year-olds touching themselves. So those are things we can't get around, but we just have to be conscious of how it impacts our lives. And I know some of you may say, well, in Africa, African people, they walk around bare chested. Okay, that's a whole culture that they come out of. Western culture ain't like that, okay, unless you grew up in a nudist colony, you know, but sexuality is something else that we have to become aware of and be conscious of and talk about. And that's something that we didn't talk about when we were younger. We didn't talk about sex. We didn't talk about sexuality. We didn't talk about any feelings or emotions that surrounded all of that. So those are other things that we have to consider. And I know I'm jumping around. I'm just trying to remember everything. That's why I like doing presentations, because I always have the slides in front of me, you know. So that is another point to consider, you know, the things that are going on in our homes. Are our children growing up in homes filled with violence? If it's verbal violence, if it's emotional violence, if it's physical violence, are these things that our children are experiencing on a regular basis in the home? Because that leads to aggressive behavior. Are our children dealing with our parents, you know, especially single mothers, frustrated, trying to work a job, not having enough money, trying to keep the house clean, trying to deal with children, dealing with, if we're not single, dealing with issues with, you know, with our spouse, screaming and yelling at our children. You know, those things contribute to our children not feeling free to come and talk to us. You know, we might say on one hand, you can tell me anything, but then on the other hand, I'm always so busy. You know, I'm cooking, I'm in the middle of something. I never have time to listen. You got to take time to sit down and listen to our children, not talk to, listen to our children. There's another thought that came through and it went out that fast. But these are some of the things that we have to be conscious of as parents, of being there for our children, and not just physically, you know, emotionally. We have to be there. Oh, that was the other thought. When we're stressed, if we're extremely stressed and our children know that we're extremely stressed, a lot of times they won't come to us and tell us things, you know, because they already feel like, I don't want to put any more pressure on her. If it's a family member, and if the family member has told them, if you tell, I'm gonna go to jail. So that's a fear that they have, you know. We have to make it such that we talk to our children, we listen to our children, we take up advantage of teachable moments, especially now with our children exposed to so much technology, with the internet, there's so much pornography. You know, those are the kind of things that we have to be able, you see something come across the screen, use it as a teachable moment. Don't make it a preachment, but use it as a teachable opportunity and let children know, age appropriate, why it is we don't do certain things, okay? And that's another thing for those of us that are married. What's going on in our bedrooms? How vocal are we? What are our children hearing and being exposed to? It's so many things that we have to consider. It's not just one thing, okay? So we have to figure out a way for me to actually give these classes to share all of this information. But I did want to try and touch on some of the points, and I hope that this information is helpful. I hope that this information will open some dialogue. Before I leave, one of the things that is imperative that we do is we begin to teach our children the proper names for their body parts. When our children are little, you know how we ears, eyes, nose, and have them repeated. We have to add in fingers, penis, vagina, you add it in. We have made it a taboo to even talk about our private body parts, to give them their proper names. And so it makes children feel like there's something wrong with saying those things. You know, we don't overdo it. We don't overdo feet and fingers and ears and eyes and nose. You don't overdo that, vagina and penis. And for some children, it's funny, you know, at first, but you have to put everything in its proper perspective, proper balance, proper place. Because when children don't know the proper names, there are literally hundreds of cases where a child has tried to come forth and tell someone, it might be a teacher or a counselor at school or a family member, and they use one of the little names that the family uses for those private body parts. And the teacher, the counselor, whoever it is that's being told, couldn't really, you know, get it, what was being said. So it's very important that we begin to use those proper names and teach our children the proper names so that they have the vocabulary that when they say, someone touched my vagina or someone touched my penis, you know, they have that, as opposed to saying, my cookie is hurting. My cookie. What cookie? You know, you're thinking about a cookie in a cookie jar, you know, but you know, if someone says my vagina is hurting, that's a whole nother level of understanding. So, wow, there's so much that I would love to be able to share. I didn't want this to seem like a class. I wanted it to seem more like us just sitting down on the couch talking, you know. That's why I chose to come in here instead of sitting at my computer desk. But like I said, I hope that this opens some dialogue. I hope that we can have some further discussion. And I hope that it just provokes some thoughts about what more we must do to raise healthy children. Because if we don't raise healthy children, in the end, we have broken adults. And then we find ourselves having to go through therapy and through counseling to try and get things right, you know. And I mentioned earlier about me going through therapy. Yes, I have done therapy on 3 different occasions. When I first learned about what was going on, I went to therapy for approximately 9 months or so. And this location was like, for you all in Dimona, you know where Meir Panim is. You know it's not far from Akva. I would leave Akva and I'd be crying buckets between Akva and Meir Panim because the location was on the back side of the place. Crying buckets, and I cried 15 minutes of my 1-hour session just trying to get myself together, you know. So that was the first time I was in therapy. A few years ago, I did a different type of therapy called breathing therapy. And I would like to take this time to thank Akobu Kama, who has been helpful in the past with getting me linked into people that I needed to see. And my current therapist is from Maslan. So if you can call Maslan. They have a 24-hour hotline. Like I said, the number is 1202. You can ask questions anonymously. You do not have to give your name and information. You can get help. You can go there. You can make an appointment to go there and talk with people. With COVID, I don't know exactly how they're dealing with things. I was just there this past week. So my current therapist has been quite helpful in helping me deal with my issues and working through some of my challenges on my healing journey. And I do see healing as a journey. I don't see it as a destination. And this is the path that I'm on now. I'll be closing this session, this almost 2-year session out in another couple of weeks. And it has been quite helpful. Some people may feel like, well, you know, anybody that's not Black can't really help me. That's not always true, you know. And depending on your level of, I'll use the word brokenness, but I want to come up with a better word, but your level of trauma, okay, maybe something that you can work through on your own. Dance might work for you, or art might work for you, or photography, or a hobby, or something that you're interested in might work for you. You know, keeping a journal might work for you. Meditation, and you know, exercise and yoga. There are a lot of things that you can do, but sometimes you have to really get some professional help. Sometimes talking to your girlfriend who really doesn't understand isn't enough. And sometimes talking to people, especially people who have this mentality of, girl, just get over it. That happened a long time ago. I would have thought you'd have forgot by now. Parents that say to you, well, what do you want to do? Destroy the family? That person's family, if you come forward and say something, just let it be. Those things aren't helpful. They hurt. And it took me 8 years, 8 of the 11-year journey that I've been on, for me to even be able to accept the word forgiveness. I didn't want nobody to tell me forgive. Granted, at the end of the day, I had to forgive because forgiveness wasn't for them, it was for me. But I just want to share this book right here that my therapist told me about. It's called The Journey. I know it's flipped backwards, but it's called The Journey. When I read this book really solidified things for me. And I had been hearing forgive for years. And it just, I have to say it like this, it pissed me the hell off. It made me so mad because it made it seem like I was just supposed to let that person off the hook. But and I'm saying this for those that may be in that same position, because some of us have a hard time forgiving, you know, because that's what we equate it to. But when this book talked about how when all of that trauma and all that pain stays in your system and becomes a part of your DNA, and as your organs regenerate, because our bodies regenerate, each organ or each body part regenerates, our cells, the cells regenerate at different periods of time. And as that trauma stays in you, as that fear, as that anger, as that hurt stays in you, when your cells regenerate, all that goes into the new cells. And so you find that you can't heal from a sickness or an illness. Sometimes that's the reason why. So this is one book that helped. Speaking further on the trauma, and y'all know me, the school librarian, so you know I always got my books. This book, The Deepest Well, I'm going to share the link with the TED Talk that the woman that wrote this book, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, a sister, And she talks about what they call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and how you may think you got over it, but you haven't really dealt with it, and how they negatively impact your adult health, leading to heart issues, diabetes, all types of major illnesses that are linked into a childhood trauma. Okay, so a couple of other books I want to share while I'm on books. This was the first book, one of the first books that I read, No Secrets, No Lies by Robert D. Stone. This book helped me so much when I first began my healing journey 11 years ago. And this is not my original copy. I don't know what happened to my original copy. I think I may have given it to somebody. That's why I don't give books out now, y'all. But I had it highlighted. This book was so good in helping me. And another book that I feel is important for all of us as people of color, especially those that grew up in the U.S., Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome. This woman is also available on YouTube, Dr. Joy DeGruy-Leary. And so much of what we do as a people now is a part of, rooted in what generations of our people went through and the traumas that we went through as people of color with slavery, and not knowing our lineage and our greatness as people of color, that we came from kings and queens, that we had a land, that we had a language, okay? This right here is Afron's book, The Lies of Heaven. This was a very difficult book to read and to help him write. When he first started dealing with his trauma, he was on house arrest at my house, and he couldn't sleep. He has a very serious case of PTSD from his trauma, from his childhood trauma. And he would write at night, and then in the mornings I would get up, and he would have his papers laying around, and he'd give them to me, and I would type them up and correct them. And so, it's his words and it's my editing, but this is his story and his journey. It's very painful to have to work through, as well as viewing his documentary that Yes Doko sponsored, that came out, what, two and a half years ago. That's plays on Yes Doko occasionally, still the Yes channel. And I just want to say, first of all, I'm so proud of both of my children and their healing with what they have been through. Bitula with her business and everything she puts her hand to, she's just determined and working through and doing and being the best possible person she can be, and helping everybody else along the way. And Afron, his healing journey is coming along so well. And one of the reasons I say healing journey is because sometimes we have setbacks. Sometimes things trigger us, There's sometimes I'm triggered and I can't go to the kafar. And y'all might say, that's stupid. But sometimes I can't, because of the pain of what I went through and the association to the kafar and the community. So, sometimes it's a smell, sometimes it's a place, sometimes it's a sound. And we might have a setback, periods of time when we go through serious depression. I've been there, y'all. I've been so depressed, I couldn't get out of bed for weeks. I'd go to the bathroom, I'd drink water, I'd go eat something. My kitchen was a wreck because I didn't clean it for days on end, And that's having a therapist that did help me with all of those things, as well as relocating to my new place. I love my new place. But this is another book, Healing Neen. This woman was arrested 83 times. She was convicted 66 times. She was in and out of prison for so much of her life. She has children. She started using drugs. Her sexual abuse began when she was 9 years old. And she started doing drugs, and she's had children from her prostituting to make money for drugs that she doesn't even know where they are, where the system took her children, But eventually someone finally asked her, what happened to you? And she was able to open up and talk about it and turn her life around, So this is a great testimony. And This book is by our very own Akot Eliana. You all know her as Akot Eliana. I call her Akot Nyana, but this is her testimony. It's available on Amazon. So these are books that I have read. These are just some of the books in my library. I have a lot of books on education, on healing, on self-help, self-care. So I hope that I've covered enough for us to begin to have an actual discussion and dialogue. Let us not feel that we have to be ashamed about our past. Let us not feel that we have to keep it a secret and keep it hidden. No, you do not have to come forth and tell everybody your business and tell everybody your story. But if you know that you want to get some help, do that. If there's anything that I can do to help you, I'm here. But call it a reason why, okay? Don't call before 10 in the morning. Don't call after 9 at night. And we're trying, the committee that I work with, again, Committee for Child Safety. There's also in the community a social wellness committee. I know that Akot Wakama and Ator Priel are on that. Well, I'll stick with the sisters. Akot Wakama is on that committee. Akot Eli Eaton, Akot Parakia serve on that committee. So those are sisters that you can reach out to for social wellness. I think Dora Batia is also on that committee. As far as for Committee for Child Safety, that's myself and Akot Shakadia that initiated that committee, and we work with Akot Parakia and Akot Eli on that committee as well. So we do collaborate with social wellness and share information, but everything that is brought to us is in confidentiality. It remains amongst us. We also, all of us on the Child Safety Committee, myself, Coach Shakadia, Coach Parakia, Cody Lai, are all mentors, certified mentors. We graduated in 2010 from our first mentoring course. We just completed another mentoring course, sort of as a refresher for us, and brought some other people in. So we do have more mentors, and we're looking at taking the Mishkakia, for those of you all that know where it is, over on Kofshe Lot, where we've worked some programs out of. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody from the community at this point over the center, but the Israeli woman that we work with, we're trying to get that place set up so we can renovate it, first of all, because it looks like, and we're not satisfied with that one. We want to get it renovated, and we want to be able to work all of our programs out of there, as well as the location for the mentoring center. We're still trying to work out the logistics of all of that, but I just wanted you all to know that these things are available. So I'm going to close out at this point. Again, I hope that this has been beneficial, and may we all have a great week coming. May we all be blessed, and may we find peace on our healing journey. Shalom.